Welcome to Mastering the Last Mile. This is Jim Royce. If you've been following this series, you know we've spent the last 3 sessions building a map, a working analysis of the last mile contracting landscape for pure play process entrepreneurs like us. In Article 1, we watched the industry consolidate around 2 dominant players, Amazon and FedEx, and we identified the contractor's black box, that gap between the parent company's control and the contractor's autonomy. In Article 2, we looked at what you actually own in each relationship, the equity of the dirt in the FedEx model versus what amounts to the promise of a high-paying job in the Amazon one, and how both ecosystems are migrating from subjective station-level relationships into a colder, data-driven risk profile. And in Article 3, we showed why the owner who can brilliantly manage 10 routes breaks down at 40, and why management by exception is a death sentence when the operation outgrows one person's capacity to hold it all in their head. All of that was the physics. This article is about what you can actually build, not what vendor you call and not another siloed software program bolted on to the side of your operation. The kind of visibility you need as the person whose livelihood rides on every van that leaves the lot to see the things that matter in time to act on them inside an ecosystem that was not designed to show them to you. When you launch your operation, you are essentially handed the keys to a very impressive aircraft. The instruments look sophisticated. The runway is ready. You are told, essentially, that this plane will fly you where you need to go. But the plane was not built for you or your destination. It was built for theirs. The cockpit you're sitting in, the dashboards, the scorecards, the weekly calls, was designed to fly their cargo. Risk insulation, brand protection, network level consistency. Your cargo, profitability, asset longevity, the durability of your business is not on their manifest. Look, both Amazon and FedEx spend enormous sums on software, and they care very much that you can do your job well. They have a vested interest in your performance. But doing your job well and running a successful business are not the same thing. Their dashboard was designed to ensure their visibility into your performance. It was not designed to give you visibility into whether your fleet holds together through winter, whether your strongest manager is quietly burning out, whether driver Torres has been cutting corners on pre-trips for 3 weeks. Those things are invisible to their sensors. They don't measure them because they don't need to. If your operation falters, they split your routes among the remaining contractors in your station, backfill within days, and the only person who bears the real cost is you. Think of it like driving for Uber. Uber cares about their dashboard, the lights on the screen, the map, the customer rating. As long as those stay green, they're satisfied. You, the owner of the vehicle, are the one who must care about the dipstick, the oil that's turning black, the brake pads that are thinning, the transmission that's starting to shudder on hills. The moment that neglected dipstick leads to a seized engine, Uber does not lose a thing. They deactivate your account and onboard a new driver. Meanwhile, you're stuck with a machine that doesn't run. You cannot manage your engine by staring at their dashboard. The instinct to manage to the partner screen is not laziness. It is the rational response to the incentive structure you're operating within. Your partner deploys both the carrot, bonuses and growth opportunities, as well as the stick, contractual breaches, safety violations, service level failures. The scorecard is a moving target. When they adjust their standards, your bonus thresholds shift, and you are running hard just to get back where you were last quarter. So without a coherent system of your own, you end up stacking their requirements one on top of another, an ever-growing pile of disconnected tasks and directives, each one prescribed by them, each one pulling you deeper into their process and their priorities. It's a hamster wheel. That posture, perpetually reacting, chasing a bonus whose thresholds change all the time, scrambling to manage to some new metric, running fast just to stay in the same low margin place, that's a defensive crouch. You're bracing, not building. Every morning starts with a triage. The alternative is true sovereignty, when your own instruments tell you where you stand before anyone else does. The state of your fleet, the readiness of your team, the exposure in your compliance profile, all visible before the first van leaves the lot. Not so you can ignore their scorecard, you can't, and you shouldn't, but so you can meet it from a position of strength rather than anxiety. You are still flying their aircraft, you're just doing it with full instrumentation. In Article 3, we discussed the glass box, the near total visibility that Amazon has into your day-to-day operation. Every departure time, every delivery sequence, every seatbelt click and hard brake event. Meanwhile, FedEx has historically been more hands-off, though Network 2.0 is changing that rapidly. But regardless of which ecosystem you operate in, the glass box metaphor isn't quite right because it implies a symmetry that doesn't exist. Rather, it's more like a one-way mirror. They can see in, they know exactly how you're performing against their risk model. And you're on the other side of the glass. They are blind to you, and you cannot see the calculations that determine whether your contract gets renewed or flagged. Worse, the image the mirror points back isn't even focused on the right things, so you can't see what's generating invisible heat inside your own operation. A tire with an eighth of an inch of tread doesn't show up on your scorecard until it blows out on Route 14 and your driver misses 40 stops. A manager who stopped doing regular inspections 2 weeks ago doesn't appear until you're staring at a DOT violation. One driver starts to return his van on empty every shift. Another stuffs trash under the seats. When it goes unseen, the heat compounds. By the time it surfaces, the damage is already done. Point the mirror back at the right angle, and you have a forensic instrument, one that shows you in real time exactly where the heat in your operation is being generated. 3 concerns are always reflected back. The first is your human capital, the happiness and performance of the people you depend on every day, whose loyalty and judgment determine whether your operation runs well or runs you into the ground. The second is your physical capital, the useful life of a fleet that compounds into reliable margin when it's watched and bleeds value silently when it isn't. And the third is your compliance posture, the dozens of contractual tripwires that sit quietly in the background, any one of which can jeopardize everything else you've built. And the mirror has to do this work on its own, not as a task you remember to perform on a Friday afternoon, as a matter of course, built into how the operation already runs. Every condition that matters is captured before the keys even change hands. Every transfer of responsibility is recorded automatically with a name and a timestamp attached. The chain of custody stops being a question you reconstruct at dusk. It becomes a fact the system writes at dawn. In the early 1990s, New York City transformed the perception and the reality of the public safety on the back of 2 ideas: broken windows policing and a data discipline called CompStat. The principle was simple: aggressively address the small fires, the graffiti, turnstile jumpers, the broken windows themselves, and you starve the environment of the oxygen that breeds catastrophe. You don't wait for the crisis. You fix the conditions that make a crisis possible. Your operation has its own broken windows: the untucked shirt, the refusal to help with a rescue, the undiagnosed low tire pressure. These are the leading indicators of the failures you'll be cleaning up 2, 4, 6 months from now. An underreported truth of last mile success is that operational health is not driven by the best performers. It's achieved by raising the performance floor for all. Done well, average performers buy in, and any feet draggers are immediately and repeatedly flagged, providing the necessary justification for coaching or offboarding. Raising that floor effectively is simple in theory, not necessarily so easy in practice. It requires erecting a series of gates built into your operation through which every driver, every shift, every piece of equipment must pass. Constant inspection and certification must be built into loadout, into RTS, into schedule, and onto the road itself. Every time possession is transferred, every change in availability, even every hour that passes, all of these are gates that create an opportunity to affirm compliance and generate alerts for exceptions. A good system performs these checks accurately and invisibly, so compliance becomes a simple byproduct of the operation. The best compliance is not the kind you audit for. It's the kind that cannot fail to happen. But gates aren't enough. By themselves, they just collect data. They can't interpret it or tell you what you should do with it. Historically, that's what reports were for. Find the relevant data points, connect the dots, and draw conclusions. Today, though, the promise is that AI will do all this for you. In last mile, the prospect is tantalizing. Stick AI on your data and extract actionable insights. A driver's subtle attendance drift, a medical card days from expiration, a vehicle on the cusp of a breakdown. Each one contextualized, prioritized, handed to you before it posts and costs your operation. You don't go looking for the problem finds you. That sounds great. But those recommendations are only as good as the data it feeds on. AI doesn't generate insight, it magnifies signal. And it cannot distinguish intelligence from error. Equipment logs filled in from memory, attendance tracked inconsistently, incomplete maintenance records. These distortions don't stay small. Fed into the engine, they get amplified into confident recommendations, all built on a fiction. The gate only works if it accurately tracks what passes through it. Your partner solved their visibility problem years ago. What was once a black box, they have systematically transformed into glass. Instrumented, transparent, and entirely legible to them. On your side, little has changed. You're still staring at a mirror, your own operation reflecting back at you, opaque and unreadable. The move is to stop accepting that mirror as a fixed condition. Your partner has an omniscience you cannot possibly match. Instead, you must focus that mirror inward, where your own vulnerabilities live and compound in the dark. Redirected, it stops being a surface that serves their advantage. It becomes the instrument that builds yours, one that works harder in the background than any single person can in the foreground. The grit it takes to run one of these operations is real and hard-won and worth acknowledging. Most contractors carry more operational knowledge in their heads than any executive will ever accumulate. But carrying it is the problem. If the only place that knowledge lives is in you, if you're the only one who knows where every body is buried, then you're not running the operation, you are the operation. You can keep pushing that rock up the hill on sheer will, or you can build something that holds it there. And when something else can carry the burden of watching your entire operation, you get to do what you actually came here to do. You sit down with a driver, not to interrogate him about a missing package, but to talk about where he wants to be in 2 years. And you notice your best manager has been quieter lately, and you have the time to ask why before she's already decided to leave. You build a culture you intended to build the day you delivered your first package, not the one that assembled itself in your absence while you were busy being the only person who knew how everything worked. Connection, professionalism, a team that doesn't need you to hold it together because you built it to last. That's not a soft ambition. That's the whole point. Visibility doesn't just protect the operation. It liberates the operator to be a leader. The future of last mile will not be won by the fastest vans or even the most routes. It will be won by contractors who decided that flying blind in someone else's cockpit was no longer good enough, who aimed the mirror inward and built the instrumentation to finally fly the plane on their own terms. Not the ones who knew the most, the ones who could finally see the way clearly toward their intended destination. Thank you for joining me. I hope to see you again here soon on Mastering the Last Mile.